We didn't.
Can you ponder
Oh, yeah,
that?
the bank sent us.
Can you
He's like,
ponder that before I
we owned this house for
communicate
2
that we
weeks.
got
I don't
30
understand
grand?
what the bank would
I
send
think
you.
that
We went inside and
it would
sure.
be
Lights
for
on you, sir.
improvement of the park,
All the
Okay.
upgrading of the park.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Watch yourself.
Watch yourself,
Yes.
Richard.
Yeah.
Just wanna make sure.
Thank you, sir.
Must have set some things back.
We do
Oh,
have
yeah.
a quorum.
It ruined
All right,
your furnace,
we have our,
hot water tank, the whole
the
nine.
red dot is on, so I will open up this town council meeting for the 15th. I apologize. Please stand for the pledge. Roll call, Twyla.
Yes, Councillor Colby,
Here.
Councillor Gannon,
Here.
Councillor LaRochelle,
Here.
Councillor Ward,
Here.
Councillor Fellows,
Here.
Councillor Albert,
He has an excuse for tonight. He has a commitment he can't get out of.
Councillor Lunt,
I have not heard. I've just heard a door coming through, so hopefully he's coming through the door and will join us in process.
Yes, Mark, you here? I'm here. Okay.
so do you need to make a motion?
I need to make a motion for Mr. Albert, please.
I'll make the motion.
And I got the second right there with Don. All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you. Next item, Twyla.
Under Good News and Recognition, you have Order 2020-164, the Childhood Cancer Awareness Proclamation, which reads as follows. The Town of Lisbon supports Going Gold in the month of September in support of childhood cancer awareness, whereas cancer is the leading cause of death by disease among U.S. children and is detected in more than 15,000 of our country's sons and daughters every year. And whereas in the state of Maine, cancer affects more than 50 new children and families annually, where more than 400 children are undergoing treatment currently, and where we are ranked in the top range of incident of all cancers at 468.3 per 100,000 people. And whereas September is nationally recognized as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas, thanks to all the advances in research and treatment, the 5-year survival rate for all childhood cancers has climbed from less than 50% to 80% over the last several decades. And whereas innovative studies are leading to real breakthroughs, reminding us of the importance of supporting scientific discovery and moving closer to finding cures, though much work remains to be done. And whereas 1 in 5 children diagnosed will not survive. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of Lisbon, have declared our support for all the children and families affected by childhood cancer. In doing so, we do recognize September as Maine Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. This is our way of paying tribute to the families, friends, and professionals and communities who lend their strength to children fighting pediatric cancer. The motion is needed.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second.
A second.
I got a first and a second. All in favor?
Vote 6-0.
Yes.
Order
Thank you, Twyla.
passed.
Anybody else? Good news recognition. Had a brief conversation over the weekend. A couple of different people. School's back in session. Things are going well. All the concerns associated that seems to be from a facility standpoint that things that can be addressed are being addressed, and the fact that stay tuned, we'll have more. Anybody else? Next item, Twyla.
There are no public hearings. It would be audience participation and response for agenda items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time, to address items or issues that are on the agenda. Those listening from Town Hall's live video streaming are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org. Councillor Ward will review emails at this time.
We got nothing, Twyla. We're moving right along unless there's somebody in the wings with...
You do have someone out there, Mr.
Do we have anybody, Brett, that would like to address the council?
Richard, you want to offer some comments? Okay. Yeah, we got Richard Mason.
Thank you, sir.
I'll put my mask on, unless I can't speak clearly. Hi, I'm Richard Main. I live on Libby Street, and I'm just want to speak to the council. I appreciate your listening to us, and want to speak to the council tonight about one of the orders, the last order, 169, in regards to the electric charging stations. And I wanted to speak up and say that when government is established, it exists for the common good. It exists for the common good of all the people in the community, and it's a benefit for all the people. For example, public works, public safety, provide a service for the common good for everybody in the community. And there aren't any communities that I know of in the country that own filling stations. And I understand why, because that's something that would be governed by the private sector. And it's not something that the community would do. I'm thinking about the electric charging stations. Very few in this community probably have the means to purchase an electric vehicle. And for the community to charge, or for the community to put one in, whether it costs or not to the taxpayer at this point in time, it will still eventually be in the budget, whether it's a wash or whatever. You know, there might be a charge for the electricity or whatever, but it's going to be in the budget, and at some point in time, it's going to fall onto the taxpayer to pay the bill. We're going to be ending up with a cost, and I don't think that the town is at a point where within the next 5 or 10 years it can replace all of the police vehicles with electric vehicles, emergency vehicles, fire trucks, public works. I don't think those trucks can be replaced with electric vehicles at this time. So I see that at some point in the future that private industry, private retailer, private energy supplier could put one in and should put one in. I know of a couple of places where it would be very viable, but it's private. And so I would encourage you, as you think about that, to not go forward with it, because I don't think it's in the best interest of all of the people in the community of Lisbon. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Do you have
feedback,
any
sir.
questions?
The way that this actually evolved for tonight is it's a discussion amongst the council for direction on something that Councilor Fellows has actually been pursuing for power in general. So it's one piece of a much larger puzzle that he's starting to at least unravel. So appreciate your feedback. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
And I still have nothing here, so we're moving on to 12.
Okay, so next is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a counselor requests an item to be removed for immediate discussion. Seeing none, any counselor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Order 2020-165 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants, $21,337.67. The municipal payroll warrants totaling $142,631.90. The school accounts payable warrants totaling $570,535.38, and the school payroll warrants, which total $1,036,129.55, along with the minutes of September 1, and to set a public hearing for the Left Hand Club for a special entertainment permit on October 6, and to set a public hearing on October 6 also to discuss amendments to Chapter 14, GA maximums and appendices.
I make the motion.
Second.
Can we make that for discussion?
We wait, Ken? Yes.
You want to remove an item for discussion?
No, can we just have a question asked on one topic? Does it have to be removed?
It should be.
With everything going on, I'm just curious about what the left-hand club's actually doing, and does it pass what's actually there for restrictions with mass gatherings?
We would not have any idea.
It's a
I think
renewal.
it would-
So it's their own, so it's just an annual. Okay, annual, we're good. I
It
just want
is an annual.
we're okay, I
And the
misunderstood.
liquor license
That's
is
on me.
granted along with the special entertainment by the state, so I think they would be monitoring it.
Thank you, Counselor. No, we're good. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item.
Under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2020-166 to award the bid for the LED message sign.
Brett?
That would be.
Good evening, everybody. Brett Richardson, Economic and Community Development Director. The order before us is a request to approve a bid process and award the bid to Neocraft Signs. They provided the sign that's out there. The local gentleman, the sales rep, is very responsive and around, and they also came in with the best bid, lowest price, and also higher quality. You'll notice in the fine print that the sign that Neocraft proposed is a 9 millimeter. That means that there's 9 millimeters between the pixels. The other bid was more expensive, and there's 16 millimeters, so it's a bigger gap, less flexibility in terms of what the appearance would look like. So this purchase would be paid for by a grant from the DHHS under the COVID-19 Municipal Awareness Campaign. So we would use that to promote COVID-19 related messaging, and it will be a long-term asset for the town as well. So we're asking for your approval to make that purchase.
Make a motion for discussion?
I need a second.
I'll second.
Yes, sir.
Then, good information. I think it's actually a good opportunity. Have we come up with a, how do I say, is it going to be a particular person in the town that actually is responsible for the upkeeping and the programming of the sign?
That would be me.
The one and only, yeah?
Yep.
So that can actually be changed from remotely compared to what it is now, right?
Yeah.
So if something was to come up, you could actually change it from where you are, maybe even on your phone, compared to what you used to have to do, right?
It's an excellent point. It oftentimes will take an hour to change that currently. It just loses connection to the sign from the internet. The fonts are hard to manage. Sometimes the signs will be posted, you'll go out and walk out, they'll be there, and an hour later they'll go away. So there's definitely a quality control issue, and I think the ease of use will allow us to make much better use of that. Diane made the point around stormwater messaging and all kinds of different things that the town is responsible to push out.
Correct.
And this will allow us to do a good job of that. And also to meet a segment of the community that maybe doesn't spend time on the internet or on the Facebook, and that gets a lot of their messaging from traditional news or driving by. So it'll allow us to reach a new audience as well.
Well, that's really cool, and I'm sure, the state does a really good job down the highways for unique, information as far as for the COVID, and I'm sure some of the stuff we can do here with that new program is going to be pretty neat too, as far as for being more interactive.
Definitely.
That's very cool. I think it's exciting, and it's probably going to be a lot more up to date and current than what we've had in the past as far as the way it's promoted. So
Definitely.
that's very good. And do we actually? A lot of stuff can be preset in the computer, so we can actually do our town meetings and all that stuff. But in between that, actually just roll particular messages consistently, right? I know before it was actually a very preset what the sign said and how long it said it for and how it changed. But
Yeah.
so we just have all the new technologies and what we're going to have. Basically.
Yeah, it's all the bells and whistles, and I think it will be able to update in real time, almost day to day. If we have an LDC meeting in the evening, we can post that. For example, if it's at the MTM Center like we had it last time versus a different location. I think with this tool, it'll be 15 minutes in the morning to update stuff for that day. So I think it'll be a good asset.
Good, thank you.
Did they give you any issue with installation before the 31st for the expenditure?
It's a push. We've got to push on that. So we've got the check cut, hoping for approval tonight. We'll get that paperwork to them tomorrow. They're doing a few of these for other communities in the state under the same program, so they're aware of that time frame, and we're confident that they'll meet it.
Okay, that would be the one thing that I would offer from that grant, is it has a static point in time, and I know everybody's scrambling to try to meet that.
That's a good point.
We all just signed the contract on Friday.
Right.
Wow, it's tight.
It is very tight. But that's when the state sent out the amended contract with the new amounts that we just.
Right.
Then we've got this deadline.
And the good news is, part of the deal is 80% down, so we'll have paid a big chunk of it well before the deadline, and a couple couple grand to wrap it up at the end. So the risk in that regard hopefully won't come into play, but if it does, it's quite small.
It's less about the install as long as it passes straight pace test for the grant. You don't end up having to eat the full cost of something that was intended to come from it. That's all. So I'm comfortable with that. Anybody else?
Yes. I know I can read the dimensions on the thing, and I know that it fits on the same signpost or posts out there. But is it the same height and width as that sign now?
It is, but it's a lot tighter. So the image coming around, you'll see the stormwater duct that we're all familiar with. We'll be able to put that out there.
Okay.
We'll be able to have images, like the one of the signs down on Main Street that has the mask, and it says a mask won't hide your moxie. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to put that up there too. So we can tailor, we can use sort of existing images, but also Lisbon-specific images.
Well, I could just say it'll be really nice to have current, relevant information up there. And
It's a tool. It's an opportunity that we can do a better job at. This will help us do that.
Perfect. Anybody else? I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor then.
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item.
Order 2020-167 to solicit bids for the new cruiser.
Evening.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
For the listening dot above your head, who are you?
My name is Ryan McGee. I am the lieutenant at the Lisbon Police Department and also the current interim chief. I also like to thank the council and the town manager. Very humbled to be in this position.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here tonight in front of you to asking for permission to go ahead with the bid process for a 2020 Ford Interceptor. It's already been approved in the budget, so this is a matter of going ahead with the new bid process that the council put forward, I believe, back in May. Ms. Barnes actually did a very good job at updating me, making sure I had all the current paperwork.
Thanks to Alan.
Thank you, Alan. And I will say, that process, I think, in the long run, is actually going to be a much better process. It'll keep things more in order.
Tabulation just makes it easier to read versus what we've done in the past. The fact that you can compare warranties and what's in their bid right in one spot. My one thought on the proposal is I'm not confident you're going to find one with a 2020 left over, because the fact is they're few and far in between because everybody that's had issue. But I don't want to slow your roll associated with being able to put this out, because it's anything you're putting in now, you may not get it until June next year anyways.
I 100% agree. And I did some legwork beforehand, and there is a dealership that does have two actually in stock, and it's one that we go through, and it's on the bid list as well.
Right on.
But it's very possible, there's other agencies, that was just as of end of last week. Things are fluid and they move. But looking at a 2020, sometimes we can get, from what I've seen in the past from the previous chiefs, sometimes we can actually get a better deal if we're doing the 2020, and the 2020 is the exact same cruiser as the 2021. So I figured it would be best to start there, and we're basically getting the same car with just a different year number marked on it, and we can get a better deal that would work as well. So we'll see what the bids come back. We have quite a few of them on there this year. The current cruiser number 6 that we're slated to replace, following the capital improvement plan that Chief Hagan previously put together, I also helped work on. That cruiser is slated to be replaced this year. It's currently at 113,000 miles, and our projections when we put the replacement plan together said it would be at about 116,000 by the time we turned it in or traded it in. Speaking of trading in, I know in years past, sometimes we would move a old cruiser into different parts of the town for town entities to use. I do want to say that this cruiser is our oldest cruiser. It's a 2014, but it's actually been here since 2013. The miles are one thing, the hours are another thing, but I will say that it's getting old, it's burning oil. I'm not a mechanic, but I would say that cost benefit, I think we'd be better off trading it in at this point before there are any major issues. The flip side of that I'm looking at is long-term budget, next year budget, looking at the replacement project. Next year is a 2 cruise a year. This year is a 1 cruise a year. And as you know, we do one year, 2 the next year. Next year, one of the cruises falls as a K9 cruiser. K9 cruiser costs more to upfit than a standard cruiser. From looking at previous bids of what we get on average on cruisers, I'm hoping to get somewhere in the range of $700 to $8,500 for this cruiser. That being said, if we do get that for a trade-in from one of these dealerships, that would land us in a very good spot for next year at reducing the price on the build of the cruiser this year, because then we'd already have that money in an account ready for us for next year to build the cruiser. There'd be no increase on trying to build a K9 car. The money would already be there. So that would be the second part of why I believe it would be a good idea to trade this in, lower the cost of the cruise that we're getting this year. To backtrack just a little bit, Alan made a very good point as far as there's not a lot of 2020s out there. I do have my fingers crossed that we will end up being able to get one quickly, but you hit the nail right on the head. Basically, earlier this year, 2 major Ford fleet manufacturing centers in Michigan shut down in May due to COVID-19, and they've been very limited since that. And they also, plenty of news articles that they've switched over building different types of medical equipment. So I'm just asking for your permission to go ahead and move forward with the bid process.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Second?
Got the second right there. Good. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
And again, if any of this information is something you need to get back to us, that's fine. But I know last year Chief had actually come forward, and the 2020 was actually quite a different interior design than the 19s. They actually revamped the car in 2020, and he was unsure about the
2020 is the first year cruiser. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and we already have one of those on fleet right now, right?
We do, correct.
And Chief was not aware of what the equipment cost would be on that, because a lot of the equipment was different. Do we actually have something built into the budget to actually re-equip this vehicle with a cage and the internals, so to speak?
Yeah, so part of the issue with that was several of the cruisers have different boxes,
Okay.
upfitting different cargo boxes in the back, and there was an increase. The way that Chief Hagan has it budgeted, the money allocated every year is enough to take care of upfitting the regular cruiser, but it is not enough to take care of the K9 cruiser.
K9.
One of the major costs was our camera systems and our computer systems and our radios. The radios, the Chief did a good job in getting a grant on, so we have a new radio. The other radio, we have another radio, which is a used radio, which we can slide over into one of those cruises. But this year it'll be a new radio, just looking long-term as well. So several of the items we're able to swap over into new cars. We did have an issue with one of the cruisers because there was a very old box in the back of it, and those boxes are not inexpensive. They're very expensive, and that was on one of the older cars. The car that we move the cars around a little bit, and the equipment that's going to go into this car isn't going to be an issue as far as the box being able to go into it. Yes, the center console, the metal consoles that are in the middle are a little bit different, and the light bars a little bit wider, but those are all factored into the original replacement for the cruisers.
Okay, so you will, so the money that you have allotted will actually take care of the equipping the car to get it full ready. So the only reason I was asking that is the idea of taking this year's trade-in and actually banking that money, so to speak, and putting it towards the K9. I was just making sure that we had enough money to actually equip the car.
Yes.
I knew that was a concern going into last year, not knowing what the cost was going to be because of a new model, but sounds like you have that pretty much worked out.
My big concern was that K9 car, because the equipment that goes into it obviously is expensive. It's one time, but the car lasts a very long time. So,
do you have a rough idea what it will equip the K9? Is that fit in that $8,000 to $9,000 range? Is it quite a bit more than that?
I think it's going to be about a high number.
Yeah.
I think it would be right around $7,500. A low number would be about $6,200 on additional to the regular outfit.
Yep.
So if we were able to get at least this, $7,200, that would be enough. But I'm hoping the dealers come in a little bit better, so.
Yep.
I waxed it the other day, so it looks pretty good.
Any other questions, Chief? All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next item, file?
Ordinance 2021-68 to amend Chapter 14, the GA maximums and appendices. This is a first reading. A roll call vote is required.
We do this annually.
Right.
That the state adopts new general assistance maximums that we do have to adopt as well. And in the packet, it shows the changes, the updates. I've highlighted them from our ordinance.
I'll make a motion.
I need the second.
I'll second.
And I guess I should have been comment. Basically, just the comment is we don't have any control over this. We're actually just adopting what the state
Right.
says we need to adopt. So.
Yep.
Correct. Any other discussion? All in favor of that item?
No, roll call.
This is
Roll call, thank you.
Counselor La Rochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Ganong,
Yes.
Counselor Colby,
Yes.
Counselor Fellows,
Yes.
and Counselor Albert's missing. So 6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Chair, may I ask one more question on that?
Absolutely.
Diane, how did we do last year or up to this point actually collecting the percentage of what that comes back? I mean, as the general assistance, is that we usually?
We do.
collect-
We get 70% back of what we expend out.
Yep.
We haven't received everything back yet. They're behind on sending payments, so we had to do an accounts receivable on like 3 months worth.
I was
Not
curious
sure
on
why
that.
that's, and you're talking small amounts because we don't really have a large general assistance caseload. We've had more in the last few months because of COVID-19, but typically we don't have a lot because we're not a service center community. But we do get 70% back.
Good, thank you.
Next item.
Order 2021-69, the electric charging station. Discussion.
Don, you framing this one?
Sure. What you should have in front of you,
Brett, why don't you come on in? Okay. Please.
what you should have in front of you is a small packet that talks about the electric vehicle charging pilot program offered by CMP, and the details of, as I know them, are right there. Attached to that is an application, which is appears to be, from all looking at it, a relatively simple application. It is an online application that somebody, whoever's responsible, clicks on it and you've made the application. Also attached to that is some information about solar power, not solar power, EV power, and what it accomplishes. As I understand, CMP's goal, as well as Efficiency Maine's goal, is to support the major corridors and the sub-major corridors that will be involved more in electric charging stations going forward, or electric cars going forward. Route 196 between here and Lewiston, Auburn is one of those corridors or sub-corridors, I-95 and 295 being the main ones. The current charging stations as they exist, other than homes, is basically the Hannaford quick charge location, which is down in Topsom, and then a couple of car dealers in the Auburn area. Other than that, there's not a lot out there. Just to give you an idea, EVgo, which is on that third page there, is one of those companies that provides a service if you network with them. They also will install and puts machines in. But their process is that somebody either becomes a member of the network and has a membership number and goes and charges and gets billed for the power usage. The other method is that if you're not a member, you would then use your credit card and it's billed to that. And there's a better rate if you are a member than if you're not. But just to give you an example, if we put these things in the corridors, and in particular where they are likely to be used by people visiting town other than home, then these examples here tell you what you can expect out of level 1, level 2, and level 3 chargers. Well, level 1 charging is basically a 110 volt at home, and you can see that it doesn't get you very far for what you charge, but most of those are at home, so they use them overnight and charge your vehicle and get a full charge out of it. The second one, level 2, which is helpful if it's next to three-phase power, is up to, say, 10 miles in 30 minutes of leaving your car here. So the idea would be, and so far as it's been practiced, is that if you leave home and you're going to a destination or on your way to a destination, and say you stop for lunch or you stop for groceries or you stop for whatever, you leave your car for half an hour, 30 minutes, or even longer, then you boost the charge that's in it and extend your range. Knowing that electric cars are going to have increasing ranges going forward, still, this is an insurance kind of policy. So DC fast charging, which is, you can see, gives 90 miles in about 30 minutes. That is the ultimate right now. Also, people have asked me about how does Tesla relate to using other charge systems. I am not an expert, but I do know that there are adapters that Tesla chargers, which I believe are high-speed chargers, can adapt to other units out there that are also electric charging stations. Just to give you an idea on fees, down in Topsom, the level 3 charger down there charges 31 cents a minute to use it. But in 30 minutes, you've got a good-sized charge using a level 3. On a level 2 charger, I believe it's a buck and a half an hour on those. So if somebody came to Lisbon and was using a level 2 charger, was there for an hour or 45 minutes, they'd get a 30 or 40 mile boost on their car by plugging it in downtown. The other thing I would say about it is, and none of us here are experts on that. I've tried to reach out, and Brett has tried to reach out to various people, mostly Revision Energy, because that's who's been responsible. We had our little meeting with Revision Energy. But I've learned that if you're going out, even filling out the most simplest applications, that you need to know what you're talking about, or generally need to know what you're talking about. For example, in even the CMP application, I found a machine that I could plug in there. But most of the time, when you look at a machine itself, you're having to go through somebody to get this machine. So, not that I want to get off the subject, but I believe we've got to do some further research and get much more serious about EV and about solar if we're going to proceed it at all, and we need to either do it through an RFP or some other method. Mr. Main mentioned, and I really hadn't planned to comment on that. I was kind of taken aback a little bit, but I do understand where he's coming from. When it comes to public involvement in these things, I think we're already public involved in this community because we provide a subsidy to bus service at the taxpayer expense. But I'm not thinking this should be a taxpayer expense. The CMP wants them to be networked and able to hook up to like an EVgo system, so that it would not cost this town money. I'm not sure how the accounting works, but as I explained to you before, you put a card in the system and it bills you for it. The owner of the network is responsible, I assume, but it all gets paid for that way. So, Brett, did you have any comment about that? I know that Fern has talked about electric vehicles going in the future, what the future looks like. But you said something about, what did you say, 2030 what?
I did some quick research online, and the projections for the market transition towards electric vehicles. Some of the stats are by 2030, roughly 25 to 30% of new vehicle sales will be electronic, or electric rather, and that's behind China and behind Europe. So you can see this coming in the future as a growing trend, and consumers will be looking for places to charge. So it could be a long-term economic development opportunity to provide that space.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Sure.
I just want to thank Don. He's actually done a lot of work on this and actually had people come into town and actually had opportunity for anybody to go in and listen. There's no doubt about it that, I mean, at some point in time, we're going to have charging stations in town. You know, how they run and who charges for them is actually kind of unique. Revision, when they came in, it was very informational. And when I sit and speak with Revision, I think of, you know, someone that actually does this for a living, that's looking to our partners, but they're doing it because that's how they make their money, right? I mean, that's their long term. But they do have a common goal, which is actually to try to get more sustainable power. To be totally honest with you, I was taking back the idea that CMP was actually offering this grant, because that actually, to me, steps over the boundaries of actually a private, even though they are private party. They do, every one of us touches CMP every day. If our power right now is coming from CMP. So to see a company like CMP actually coming and getting involved with this early kind of tells me that this CMP knows this is going to be a big factor, and they're trying to get partners early. Typically, companies like CMP don't usually offer to give much money away on circumstances like this. So Don has actually done some legwork. I mean, however we go through it, there's really no, from what I can see, no money commitment out front. I would, if nothing else, would like to see us move forward with the application to CMP just to see what the outcome is. We may, at the end of the day, it may be something we can't even attain, but at least it will give CMP the idea that we as a community are kind of interested in the idea long term. We did actually end up getting we offered 2 free charging stations, right, from Revision, which is kind of interesting. We just got to have a place to hook it up, and they're actually level 2, right, Don?
Yes, they were not, as they stood, weren't workable. You had to add extra to it to do that and to add billing to it. But
It's kind of a base level starting point type of charging system.
Right.
So, I mean, that is a great opportunity, too, and I think as a community we ought to kind of look into that. And I do understand where Mr. Main's coming from, but yet the reason Brett's involved in this is because we're looking at it for long-term economic, stance in our community. I mean, the vision of the LDC that, what we see in town, what we want to improve, and the idea of if long-term thinking, even not even long-term, it could be tomorrow. Someone's driving down 196, they're just leaving, a college area or leaving the coast, and they're coming down through Lisbon Falls, and actually the car is actually somewhat needs to charge. The GPS tells them there's a charging station at the Moxie Plaza or at their Rumbo, location. They pull in, they let the car charge for half an hour to an hour, hour and a half. In the meantime, they actually walk uptown, they stop at a restaurant, they, walk down by the river, they get a chance to use our walking trails. At some point, we got to try to get people to stop in our town, and this is just a small piece of what possibly could do this. Is it an advertisement piece? Is it something we can do? I think it's all of the above. And if we can actually partner up with someone like CMP to actually help us do something like this, I think it's crazy not to at least put the application in and see what the result is. And the worst thing can happen is we find out we are way over our heads and we just back up. That's all. But that's my opinion.
One of the things I wanted to say is they asked for what kind of a machine would you going to look for, and that's difficult to find online. But I did find one, and it's a Bosch, and the cost for that machine was about $3,400. And I've seen the pictures of it. It's pretty industrial strength machine with 2 ports or 2-port possibility on it. The CMP grant requires 4 ports per location where you want to apply, and I believe they have 60 ports available for installation. But 4 ports is 2 machines if you buy the right machine, and you put them in one location. You can put them elsewhere, but you have to put that many in one location. Several of the locations were talked about, and you do have to put a location on here. One of them was Warumbo, but in the interest of staying away from conflicting with the visioning process that's going on down there for 6 months, I kind of initially threw that one out. Then I thought about Graziano Square, or up here, Graziano Square. But if we put electric charger stations there, we are currently getting far ahead of what's in that area for stopping and charging. Unless, of course, and this may be a possibility, unless, of course, people are trying to go to the trail from there. And the trail takes off from about there all the way down through the rest of town. So that's a possibility. The other one Fern mentioned briefly, and I initially thought it was a great idea, was the town office, because we have three-phase power, we have all those things here. But I'm thinking we don't have somebody going to be stopping here for 30 to 45 minutes wanting to charge their EV vehicle that's going to need 4 ports or in the location, at least at this time. We don't have electric vehicles now. The other location I thought about was the municipal parking lot on downtown by Moxie Plaza, because there's three-phase power right there and the room to put it in the back in the area where we own. People have said the visibility is not great there, and it isn't. You wouldn't see it from 196. But anybody that's looking for an EV charging station is already on their phone looking for them and knows exactly where to find them. My number one recommendation for a site to put it in would be Warumbo. And I currently, quite honestly, don't think we really would be messing with the visioning process by putting them on the corner where most people think they want partially a parking lot anyway. So that's my number one. Number two would be the municipal downtown for locations.
Cassie?
Who would be responsible for the maintenance and the costs associated with that maintenance?
It all comes in the charging fee.
So if the machine were to break down,
It depends on who you contract with, but yeah. If you went with
there would
EV
be no costs to the taxpayer at all.
There are some communities that have done different approaches. There are businesses downtown that want to see this support and are willing to pay for that on public land. There's not enough business downtown, I don't think, to really spread it very far here. I know there are other communities that have done it in municipal areas, and I'm not sure to what degree the level is being supported by business, but Rockland is doing it, and I think Bangor and Brewer and Portland has some, and they've already done this phase 1 and phase 2.
I mean, I just wouldn't want to ever see it become a budget item.
Well, I don't want to see it any more than a wash if I did see it as a budget item. But
Now, how much of this grant would we have to contribute to, or is it completely?
it's up to $4,000 per port. It's the same. Efficiency Maine has one that just came out. It's the same idea. You have to buy the machine or get the machine, however you get the machine.
So it would potentially come out of taxpayer dollars.
Or the purpose it would be intended in my book would be TIF money, because that's what it was for. But anyway.
Mr. Chair? Madam?
Sure.
I just think there's a lot more information to come forward, and like I say, it's an interesting place to start, and as long as Don has said, he actually has some concerns and some unanswered questions. I think all of us do, even, just looking at it, there's more unanswered than answered, but to just at least get part of the process and actually put an application in, there's no charge for it, and I would hope at some point in time, if CMP is doing this, there would be more information coming forward, and it'd just be kind of unique to see what they do. And how far they're reaching. CMP may actually it's a larger company than most, and they may actually come out with some other opportunities if they don't have a lot of people that are put out for the grant. But again, it's one of those things you'll never know unless you don't try.
I know that Revision Energy urged me to do it quickly because they've already had application.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? Something intelligent. Yeah. Anyway, what was in the newspaper, I don't see it here, but in the newspaper was that I believe that Revision Energy was partnering with CMP on this. And then I'm also told that after you do your initial application, if you're accepted, then you get a lot more details of how to do what when. And I tried to find that, but you can't link to it until you've applied. So, but I did look at the Efficiency Maine one, which came out, and you can either apply you can either be accepted for one or the other, not both, but the CMP application is considerably more detailed. I mean, the Efficiency Maine one is considerably more detailed. So my recommendation is we certainly can't lose anything by trying. So I would like to do something.
Do we know in the surrounding communities that have these, do we know how often they're actually being used?
Depends on where you are, but it's brand new this year. I don't know.
I mean, I've seen them in Topsom, and I think maybe since they've been there, I've seen one vehicle parked there, and I don't even know if it was an electric vehicle or not. So
yeah,
I always see them
you know,
empty.
I've been down there and seen nothing, and I've been down there and seen two vehicles on the thing. So depends on what day of the week and who's traveling where. But anyway, no, I think it's going to be an increasing thing over time. Not, you know, you start somewhere. Like I said, if you put it in Graziano Square, it's a long time before we're going to see a huge need up there, I would think.
I would echo what you just said there, and even the two spaces that you're listed on, I'm inclined to believe the park and ride at this point in time, because I don't know if I would put a charging station in the middle of that Warumbo site and have it be the only thing that's in the area at all.
No,
I think it just, even if there's limited maintenance, I would say that there's still going to be some, because it's going to be on a town asset for insurance. There's going to be the liability associated with vandalism and all of those other costs that are just going to come into play, and I wouldn't want to put something that we're looking to bank on down the line set up for failure because of where it was put, just to rush the topic is my concern. I mean, that's why in hearing you associated with that, I'd love to see somebody with a park and ride kind of thing, because it's, again, tied to one end of the trail system, close enough to walkable down to downtown, and maybe we've got the commuter that's in the area that it works. I don't know. You know,
actually, now that you think about it, the location that's by the trail in Lisbon Center,
yep,
you know, by Ricker Farm, right next to the new solar thing that's going up, is three-phase power right there too, and that's parking for the trail. So there's another opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's just, and again, it's more of a perception of security associated with that for what you're actually marketing for somebody that you want to be able to entice to be able to use the service to begin with. Mm-hmm. The location matters.
Yeah, I think the municipal lot in downtown Lisbon Falls would probably be the best spot where you already have power right there, and it's convenient to somebody could stop in and go to restaurants and bars and stuff right in town there.
So do I.
But I think that would be my top location.
I mean, for me, I would just hate to have to contribute any type of funds to not have it be used.
What's the turnaround for approval? And the question I would have is the fact that, is it something that we want to be pursuing this fall, or something to be considering in the spring when time frame comes?
The application for CMP is the deadline is October 1st, first applied, first looked at.
Okay. And how much money are they, did you say that they are actually giving away associated with grant?
Up to $4,000 per port, which includes
capped with the number of people,
infrastructure to put them in, including the pedestal.
Okay, but are they capping their investment for grant funding?
Mm-hmm. $4,000 per. Oh yeah, it's 60 ports.
Okay, 60. Okay, so we could put in 4, so they're basically 15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's
and
what I need to hear.
If we weren't accepted for that, as I understand it, maybe Brett knows, the Efficiency Maine one is there as well.
And what is the?
And I'm not sure
what is the available funding for that?
It's the same. It's the same money.
Okay, so but is there? Do we have any idea of how many that Efficiency Maine are giving away?
I don't. Oh, wait a minute.
48, level 2.
Okay, so potentially we have access to 108, depending on what we're actually looking to do.
Is it 48?
48 CMP service territory.
60 in okay.
In 12.
48 by Efficiency Maine.
In Ameris territory. Yeah. So it'd be 48 in our area.
And you can only use the one of the
One
grant
or the other.
programs.
Right, one or the other, right.
Mr. Chair, may I?
We have two currently that revision is committed to Lisbon.
Okay.
Like the ones you just mentioned that have to be upgraded to be networked.
So there'll be some cost associated with that to get them to the level of what we would be for comparable, either under the CMP or the efficiency main grant.
I mean, and Don, maybe I may be totally wrong on this, but I see this more as an exercise just to see what the opportunities are. You mean, and then speaking with Don, I mean, I don't think Don has any interest in using any taxpayers' money or trying to put something else into the budget. I think it's more the idea of
utilization for potential for growth for the future.
we just don't know what the opportunities are. Unless you try, you never will. And like I say, the worst thing we can do is get a bunch of information back of pricing and guidance and recommendations and requirements, and then we can look at it and all and say, oh my God, it's way more than we ever thought. Or, it may be something that, at least we'll have an idea if we get into discussion a year from now. Last year when we tried for that application, this is what came out of it. And to me, it's kind of like grants. You never know if you're going to get the money till you put it out there.
Right.
And it may not be the purpose that you want, but at the end of the day, you always can say no because there's nothing ventured.
So the only money I
lost,
would want to put in it, if quote there's money to be put in it, is only the money that's already been designated for economic development, not money that's in the current running the town budget every year.
But so it's showing eligible for up to 4,000 per plug or 80% of the allowable project cost, whichever is less. So for me, how many plugs are we looking at?
4.
How many? 4? So what would our expense be though? For me to make
Are you looking at the efficiency main or the CMP one?
whichever one.
No, they're different.
No, I'm just saying, what would our cost as the town be?
I guess we'll know when we apply because there's not much more information available out there. When you apply, if you get accepted, you get every bit of the details that aren't available otherwise, and you can at that point say, maybe not.
We're
Or
not
maybe.
committed at that point at all.
So the loaded question I would have, Don, is you made a comment I think I heard is the fact that there was more detail in the CMP. If you had to pick between the two programs, which would you advocate?
I'd go with the CMP one. It's a bird in hand, and it. If we went with Efficiency Main, I would have to partner with somebody right away to know exactly what we're talking about, because there's so much detail in the type of machine and the wattage and this and that and everything that I don't know.
I would think that you would do that anyways, because we're not.
Right.
We're committed to not actually having it be on the taxpayer's base, so you would have to have that partner already lined up to be able to move forward anyways.
Which brings me to the second part of,
Right.
if we're going to go with that and anything else, we need to be thinking about somebody we can partner with, however we do it, to go forward to explore opportunities not only for this, but for the town or the buildings or whatever, if it's going to makes any sense at all.
And may I again, and I'm sure if CMP is getting involved in this, they're going to have a lot more information detail moving forward. So, I mean, they're not venturing into it because they don't have enough stuff to do already. I'm sure they're venturing in because they know it's going to be something that's going to be get more over time, not less. And so, again, to me, this is more of a knowledge building project than it is probably the idea of committing to, putting a bunch of charging stations.
Well, they're all CMP. Efficiency Main also has a rebate program for personal EV chargers at home. So if you want to put in your machine, and the cost is about $500 or $600 if you put it on a post in your yard or in the garage, and there are rebate programs for all of the processes there too. But that's for personal. This is for public.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So I don't have I don't have an issue per se with applying for the grant. However, I will say I think we may be a little too early on this one. That would be my one concern is, the market is growing, but it's still incredibly small. It's even in the state of Maine. I think we're not even up to 1,000 vehicles being purchased in the state yet, year over year. So, I mean, I think it's worth looking into, but I would be concerned going forward that, even if there is no cost to the town, we may be putting stuff out there that's just not going to be used
I mean, I think there's a sort of a chicken and the egg issue with this, where somebody has to take the first step to provide that kind of kickstart to get it going. That no one's going to want to buy an electric car if there's nowhere to charge it up. So, I think there's some value there in kind of blazing that trail a bit, so that the potential is out there. They'll be more attractive for people to buy those cars.
Yeah, I know. I like my wife's cousin is considering buying. Actually, he is going to buy two electric vehicles next year. But I mean, I don't think there's that many people in our community, or even between like the Brunswick, Lewiston area, that is that much.
Actually, I don't know how many there are in Lisbon. I know there's one Nissan Leaf, at least. I see it every night. It's parked on the street in Lisbon. So
it's less about that. The fact is, because you're going to have a certain point with the fact that you're going to have the tourists and those kinds of things for the travel coming through for everything we're talking about. My concern is that I'm not hearing the definitive we have a whiz-bang place to be able to put this right now. That's if we had a clear vision where we knew this was going to go, I would feel better about it. But what I'm clearly hearing is the fact is there's no blood, no foul to be able to apply and see where it takes you to be able to flush those kind of things out. So those are the 2 points that I'm kind of countering back and forth. Because I appreciate Don's efforts. He's tackled in a short period of time at least consideration for solar, the electric vehicles, and just power in general has got so many different moving parts that how he can actually keep up with some of these things. Thank you for what you've done. That said, you've heard Don's presentation. If somebody has a motion they want to make on the topic, I would gladly entertain that and go from there.
I make a motion that we allow the town to apply for the grant and to see what plays out.
The CMP grant.
CMP grant.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on the item, guys? Mine is the fact that when we say is who's applying for the grant, is this something we're putting on economic development, and does he have the time to meet that within the October 1st deadline? That's my other concern, is the fact
it's one page and you click the button. The only research is what machine do you want and where do you want it? And that's a matter of making a decision and putting it in.
So we have to decide what machine we want when we do the grant application?
I have one here that can be used.
And that's the Bosch?
Yeah. But short of...
How did the revision for the upgrade actually tie into that? Does that give us 6 eventually down the line?
What, 6 what?
The 2 that are available to us that we would have to upgrade to integrate with somebody else. I heard that clearly.
I'm not sure if they're 2-port or what machines.
Not sure if it's 2-port either. But I wonder if we had to come up with a machine in terms of taxpayer expenditure, do we use the ones that we have from revision that they've committed to us? That would take a budget item off the table.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a low-end test to see who uses it.
See, now you're feeling what I'm putting down.
Yeah. I mean, if it's our job to provide the machine, we could thank Mr. Dunster for the machine and the grant, and it would probably lower the budget significantly. It's an idea.
Especially where you're looking for a test and you don't know where it's actually, one, going to go and what the usage associated with that going to be in a market that we're looking to grow.
Right.
So if I would advocate what he just said, is if we could pig pile on both to get the best of both worlds. And if for our application, at least tell us no. At least we've gone through that exercise and we'll have the information we need to be able to submit another request in the future if we had to.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I just make the recommendation that if we approve, we just let Don work with Brett and actually come up with the solution to the application, put it through, since there's no harm, no foul, just allow the two of them to work together to put through the application, kind of put their head together, what machine you put down and what location. And again, that's all. I can't imagine there's not a time in the world where if everything lined up and we had to, that we couldn't actually just say we're moving it down the road a couple, somewhere else. But I mean, it's strictly just a
I promise I won't take your whole day.
I'm in.
All right.
Okay, that's what I need to hear. That's what I needed to hear. The fact is, I know we as a council have actually had a couple of different conversations with Brett that he has one master associated with that, and that we want to make sure that he has the ability to time to do what he needs to do in a day.
Yep.
So the fact is that was what I needed to hear. Thank you.
And I feel that Brett already has some time invested in this to a certain aspect, so I mean, the idea of just not dumping it off, I think would be
Right.
a good opportunity.
Yes, and I clearly heard the fact is in that motion that Don would work with our economic development director to submit our application.
It's in the motion, right?
It is now.
That is clearly what I heard. You said you just seconded it. Any other discussion on that item? All in favor?
6-0. Oh, did you not?
5-1.
It's 5.
5 something.
Not abstain, you're opposed, right? Opposed. Okay, thanks. Got it.
Next item,
Under other business, council committee reports.
school. We have to defer with Mr. Albert being absent. Planning.
Planning board is not having a meeting again, but, well, there's still an active interest on the part of codes enforcement and perhaps the chair to have a joint meeting with the planning board, with the council over the prospects for retail marijuana going forward. As I understand it, that meeting probably is going to have to wait until after the MMA, whatever it's called,
Legal workshop?
The workshop.
is made available to look at. So that's what, in the end of October?
29th.
Yeah. So that's where that is.
Restrictions for meetings inside, or is what, Diane, currently?
Yeah,
That's
where do you
gonna
do
be
with
another
14
issue.
people?
Well, the question one of the other things that I am aware of that's actually coming out, and I looked at your governors, the fact that they are looking to increase, unless you're in a private office by yourself, that anybody in a municipal environment is going to be wearing a mask full time. So the fact that question I ask is, how does that change a public meeting? Because we could have a socially distanced meeting if everybody's actually wearing PPE to be able to accomplish that in the October timeframe. That's why I'm asking. So
Actually,
that said,
more likely than November.
I'm right, and I'm not. We expressed at the last meeting that it was not a rush on our part to be ahead of the state.
Right.
So we have the MMA information that will be going out that first or second week in October, that it'd be very timely to be able to be proceeding in that with both council and planning board hearing that information firsthand for what we ultimately would take action upon. Does that still work for you?
So the answer for anyone wanting to do retail marijuana in the town of Lisbon is no.
Stay tuned.
For now, at least until it's worked over between the planning board and the council, and we're months down the road.
Stay tuned. If you waited 2 years from the state to actually get their affairs in order, the fact is another month with us actually sorting it out, not going first, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Me too.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that everything on this topic to get to here, the planning board has heard from us that they had our support to be able to flush those things out. I just think that is the same, is that we want to support both Dennis and code enforcement and planning board with ultimately where this decision goes.
And I think it's important, if I may, to say there's no sense having them spin their wheels without us giving them the direction ahead of time.
Direction,
correct.
Right.
Because we've done it both ways in the past. So.
Yeah, no, and Don knows it firsthand, is we spun their wheels and they invested 1.5 years of their time just to have us reverse it a couple of times too. So I'm trying to avoid that.
It's a learning curve for everybody.
Yeah. LDC.
We had a meeting the other night. Good meeting as always. It was not a hugely attended meeting, but a typical crowd. Discussions we had is just the plans moving forward and things we need to focus on, and the group itself, from a survey that Brett had put out, actually is really focusing on the idea of the two things we already got going. The Rumbo and the Graziano Square and Village Street, because there was a big emphasis. I actually talked about Village Street and what do we do and how do we make it happen. The group actually came up with some ideas that we'll be bringing to council, I think, shortly. We just need to pull it together, see how it's going to work out. And I think the group decided if we're going to do something in Village Street, we need to be a lot more aggressive than we have been in the past and actually come up with some unique ideas. And I think that we kind of did that. Whether or not we have council support, I think we can talk about Village Street all we want, but until we get up there and actually do something serious, it's probably not going to happen. So we actually took a pretty strong stance on what happened down on Main Street. So I think, stay tuned to information that what we think we ought to do up there, and hopefully we can get council support and try to make it happen, because we tried to think about little things that can be done up that way to actually add on to Graziano Square, but at the end of the day, I just think it's going to take a lot more of an initiative to actually get Village Street going. It's already started a little bit, but I think it needs a bigger push than we've done. And we have some ideas on how to do it, and I think Brett's really on board with it by the way he sounds. So it's just more the idea of getting some details so we can come to council and just see if we can try to make a plan on how we get Village Street going. That was our biggest. We should have some more meetings coming up, and if anybody has any interest, they always can reach out to Brett to get the information on the next meeting, and hopefully maybe look at our new sign, right, and find out when it is. That's it.
The new store on Village is actually a first step. I mean, I made a point of actually stopping into her store associated with that. She's got a lot of energy, and I encouraged her to reach out to Brett to actually see if we could do for ribbon cutting associated with that, because she is the first of businesses in a recent memory to open up on Village to be able to applaud that.
I met her at a meeting just recently, and she seems very encouraged to get things going.
Cool cat and a lot of good energy for what she wants to do right there on
They've
that
been
location.
working on that building for over a year, I know.
Yep.
As far as fixing it up and making it look decent.
Yep. Conservation, Richard was in earlier, as you guys know. He had a meeting with Mark just before at 6 o'clock, so I was glad to see him tonight. They have proposals for a forestry management plan for the town properties that they're looking at. The idea that they had a revenue stream they're hoping for roughly 30 grand. I asked him the question that kind of took him back, is did they have any intent for what those funds would be used for? No, but I encourage them, given conservation and that come up with some ideas to at least present it to the council for that. I think that at best, kind of like we do with TIF funds, if it's actually there, is let's put it to use before it actually is just 30 grand that actually is picked up for something else down the line. So I think I'd like to hear what they had to say on that, because they have some initiatives, and I'm not talking about anything that would be unbudgeted like anything else that we have for budget pressures, but it would be something to be very timely. The 30 grand wouldn't be coming in until next year's budget. What are we going to do with it to earmark it at that point?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question on that?
Yep.
He mentioned earlier was the wood plan was for Beaver Park. Does that actually include like Summer Street location also?
I think it's all properties. If I didn't ask him that same question,
Yeah.
but I think one of the documents that I saw originally was town properties in general. Yes, that was my understanding too.
Thank you.
Recreation, we'll get a report future associated with that as well. County, Mark and I have a meeting tomorrow night to start the budget reviews there. First of the logistics was formality last Wednesday. We got the presentation from Mr. Post, just for the listening dot associated with that. Meeting the commissioners at their meeting the week prior, started with a 3.6% increase. They've been hearing from all communities, us included. Myself and 3 other communities were actually represented at their meeting to sit through their marathon that lasted to, it was like 12:30 when I finally got home that night. Their short version of their travels is they cut 149,000 off the budget and shifted 200,000 from reserves. So, as we all know, fund balance in years of prosperity, you actually grow the fund balance. Years that you're actually running short, you use them. This is a year where you'll be looking at using some of them. So the grand sum of that is their budget increase where we pick up tomorrow night is 0.5%. So they're relatively flat, and that equates to somewhere between 40 and 50 grand that hopefully that the budget committee can actually flush out in the next coming couple weeks.
I understand you're Mr. Vice Chair now.
I've been Mr. Vice Chair for the last 2 years in that regard. Is I think Alicia Ray, counselor from Lewiston, does a great job running the show. And what I offer from the Peanut Gallery is keeping the flow of communication, because I'm one of a few members that actually been there for the last 5 years. Mark's seen it firsthand too, because he's been there that at the time as well. There's a lot of knowledge that you want to pass on. This is what we're intending with why we're looking at those kind of things. Looking at the commissioners, they, by the time 12:30 rolled around, probably got tired of hearing from people like from me, because they have no institutional knowledge there either too. So just simple facilities. Dave over there does an incredible job to be able to keep things afloat for what he actually gets. When they were discussing their building budgets, I don't care to talk what you guys think. I want to know what Dave thinks. Is this sustainable? If he can rubber stamp it to be able to say I think I can get through without anything catastrophically happening for the year, that's who I needed to hear from. So they had a lot of discussion associated with salaries. They have a contractual 3% for this year, and they, much like we adopted with ours, is the fact is when you're talking to one, you're trying to talk to everybody. So there's 3% in salaries there. I forget what the increase is for insurance that they're looking at, but kind of like we were able to do coming through is that I'm pretty proud that we were actually able to get to a 0%, knowing that you've got some pretty sizable increases that you have to cover to be able to get back to that 0. So they're going through their same, and they heard what we were putting out there for concerns from municipalities in time of this budget. So stay tuned. We'll have more. But it's, by way of comparison, they got a budget last year that was just south of 5% increase, and they cut a grand total of $500 off it. Right, so as you present us another budget like that, year 2 is the fact is that'll be the first thing this budget committee hears when you were looking at a 3.6 and you nodded and did nothing. So they took that information pretty well to heart. They actually went through a whole discussion about the fact that the 7 commissioners there, were they going to open up to public, and my comment associated with that is I challenge you to try to keep me quiet. So I will listen to what you have to say, but we will be heard. If it doesn't play out here, it will play out in the following weeks at the budget committee. So they were very receptive.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, library, sir.
I have nothing to report.
Water.
Water. Well, I just went to a water department meeting tonight. Their water rate increase is online to increase October 1st, or October, whenever that is. The second item, they're still working on a Bill Bauer Memorial, which is really not a huge infrastructure thing. They're going to replace a yard hydrant at the gazebo in the park across from the high school. And I saw a picture of it. It's a pretty fancy looking yard hydrant with brass and things like that. But they're trying to get it organized and figure out exactly what the cost is going to be. He's already met with Mark a little bit on where to put it. And so when they get it done, they'll get it put together, they'll be soliciting money for donations for it because it won't be free. They also voted in the interest of efficiency to outsource lawn care and courier service to Lewiston with water samples. Should save them considerable man hours, which will be in turn devoted to working on water department things, which are way behind schedule. So that was looked at as very positive. One of their the new crew down there, Cody, worked on that and came up with costs and so forth. So that's going to be good for them, and that's about what I got out of the water department meeting. The next one is the 15th, I think, 14th of next month.
Thank you. Town manager.
I have nothing tonight.
Department head reports. Anybody read the content associated with this? Any questions? It's escaping me, Diane. Did we have one from town manager summarizing the energy for the all the townwide?
The what now?
Do we have a department report from the town manager to summarize what everybody will be working on? If not, can we do so for November?
Yes, I'm working on one right now.
Okay. Way I'm kind of envisioning that is Lewiston does one, and as soon as you say it's going to be a monthly newsletter, the monthly newsletter is you get 1 month and then you don't do a month too. Basically, all I'm looking for is from Diane's perspective, what's the plan for the coming month, like we talked about, to be able to...
So you want to see it before it happens, is what you're saying?
Yeah, proactive. What are we going to be working on for the coming months, just so we actually... Yeah, and then that's fine.
I'm doing it just the opposite way. I'm
That's
going to
okay.
give you the first weekend in October what happened in September.
And I have no... Summaries are always good for the listening dot, too. Where I was actually more envisioning is what's the priority going to be as we're moving forward.
Okay.
I mean...
that's easy enough,
The easy one comes right now is the fact is, okay, I know we're starting to summarize the audit. I know we are actually trying to prepare for a vote that's actually going on. We got a new acting police chief in those kind of initiatives is just trying to put that around so we can put it out there into the public of what we're actually going to be working on.
I can talk on a couple of them right now.
Okay.
So number one is we're getting ready to do the utility billing, start that module. And that's not going to be until probably November, but that's going to involve quite a few people. It's going to be a big project, but the main thing right now is I talked to Bill Alexander about it, and I need to have cooperation from their software vendor, which is Northern Data, because that's who we get our readings from. And I need to know if there's going to be a huge cost to get our information. And I had quite a lengthy discussion with him and Steve about that last week. There's no point in us going through this process and doing that conversion if we're not going to be able to get the information from that software vendor. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, but we are scheduled in November to start that project. The other thing is we just started union negotiations with the sergeant's contract, so I'm hoping that we can wrap that up pretty quick, but that's ongoing and that just started. And we have another software conversion, and that's through the Trio system. We're currently on Access, and they want to convert us to SQL. We're one of the last municipalities that are on Access. So I'm working with Roundtable to get a quote now to do their portion of it, and it's going to cost us a little, which is in the budget for the conversion from Trio to SQL, and that takes care of the assessing and the motor vehicle. And we have to. They're forcing us to do it now. So that's in the works as well.
Okay. And if, like I said, for the November, if you want to plan on that, the October, what we're planning on for November,
Yes,
if you want to put
Yep.
everything that we seem to summarize actually is in the past, and the fact is most of us sitting here knows what has actually been going on. I'd really like to have those key sound bites about what the energy is going to be to, one, make sure the departments actually are sharing that information and that it's going out to the public in advance.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The other thing is the new generator is online now at the wastewater treatment plant.
Right on.
So.
Right on.
And I misunderstood the directive.
Nope, that's fine. That's fine. And that's why I know it's here because I know what we were thinking associated with that.
Okay.
It's part of the communication part. So thank you, Diane.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yep.
follow up on that? Diane, with the discussion of the generator, did the generator at this building, did we ever get that
Yeah,
all
that's
wrapped
all
up?
set. That's all set now. Yep.
Is that, did we ever determine if that is on the maintenance schedule still?
It is, and it was scheduled to be done, but they weren't planning to do it until they did the one at the high school. It was on a schedule, but
So
it
it's
was
the same
scheduled
company?
to be done at the same time as the high school one, which was scheduled after that hurricane.
Okay, but that is the same, so it is the same company we have the service
It
plans
is,
to?
it
Good.
is, yep.
Yep,
Yep.
all right. Thank you.
So nothing on the department head reports. Anybody have any
Do
questions?
you want Kayla to report on financials?
Absolutely. Come on in.
Here.
Hello, Kayla Tierney, Finance Director. So I did a bit of a different report this time around, so I just wanted to first see if anybody had any questions on it, and then I can kind of summarize it otherwise.
Why don't you do so just for the listening nod above your head in there? And the fact is, give us way that we're actually kind of envisioning this one for you is, Kayla, is the fact that one of the key people associated with us, it would be our finance director. So the fact is getting people to actually be used to hearing from you. So I know you provided us the summary sheets and speaking to that, but I just think that it makes easier soundbite for whatever's on your mind for the month. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I break down between revenue and expenses, and first looking at revenue, I'm capturing what I'm calling quarter one, which would be July, August, and through September 9th, which puts us in period 3. So taking it as a year, we have 12 periods in a year. September puts us in period 3, which at that point, looking at revenues and looking at expenditures, we should be at about 25%. 25% collected in revenue, 25% spent on expenditures, looking at it percentage-wise. For revenues, they are in line with my projections to the budget as of the middle of period 3. Revenue sharing for July and August are listed below, and I tried to put them in charts. So the charts are revenue sharing 1, revenue sharing 2, total amounts $201,492 rounded there. Budgeted $800,000 for revenue sharing for FY21. Overall, we're doing really well thus far. Given the state of economy at the moment, it's hard to predict what revenue sharing will mean for us and will mean for the other municipalities in the state. So I'm happy with the amounts that we've received thus far, but all the while making a notation here that finance department's keeping a diligent eye on this because, as I said, given everything going on in the state, it's something that we don't know what's to come of it. So moving on, when looking at revenue collected on an organizational level within the general fund, we are also doing well, and I anticipate that today's 9/15, so tax day for us. So looking at it on an organizational level, I separated in a chart kind of year-to-date revenues in comparison to the FY21 budget on a general fund level and on the other funds that we have on our books. So on a general fund level, year-to-date revenues, $834,168 rounded dollars. As far as the other funds, total all other funds year-to-date, $114,426 rounded. As far as the other funds, our FY21 budget is budgeting for sewer fund. So total revenues collected as of September 9th would be $948,595 rounded. And when looking at that within the general fund and the sewer fund, I broke it down by department because when we're looking at as an organization, we have our general fund. Within that general fund are all of our departments, all of what each of us here are broken down into: general government, clerk, code enforcer, general assistance, police, ACO, solid waste, library, public works, parks and rec, sewer department. So that's all that makes up us as the departments. So looking at that, I also attached kind of a visual for visual people of a pie chart to kind of visually show what pieces of that pie make up that revenue, and predominantly for us it's within general government. The next kind of piece of that pie would be sewer department, then parks and rec, and solid waste, and the other ones are also included there, but they're a bit smaller pieces. So general government's largely comprised of $457,918 rounded collected for motor vehicle excise taxes. That one's kind of a unique one because, you know, with the state of emergency and everything, towards the end of fiscal year 20, you know, we believe that some of those were kind of rolled into FY21, early FY21, because people were still registering their cars that they may have had expiration on at the end of FY20. So that number there, I think, really kind of makes up some amounts from what would have been FY20 end of year there. And $201,492 rounded is our state revenue sharing, as I had discussed at the beginning of this. The next piece, the sewer department, largely comprised of $55,002 rounded of domestic sewer revenue. And the next is septage revenue, which is about $24,670 rounded. Parks and Rec, I'm looking at our summer programs, Playground Summer Camp, Trucker Summer Camp, and Beaver Park fees. I'm actually really pleased with the Beaver Park fees. Everyone's getting out, getting about, going to Beaver Park, going to our resources in town, getting outdoors, and we're seeing $4,193 rounded of revenue from Beaver Park, which is great. Solid waste, about $42,475 transfer station sticker permits, $8,613 of yard items, which makes up a largest piece of that pie piece, and then ACO. Those are Sabatis, Bowdoin, and Durham ACO revenue there. So that's the summary on the revenue side.
We're in good shape then.
In good shape, yes. And then as far as looking at expenditures, same manner as the revenues, looking at it at period 3, should be about 25% of the year for what was in comparison to the budget for FY21. So total general fund expenses year to date are $2,967,936 rounded. FY21 budget for general fund expenses is $16,831,006. Looking at encumbrances here, there's $28,340 rounded, which leaves us a $13,834,730 rounded remaining budget. So when we're looking at that on an organizational level within the general fund, about 18% of that budget has been used year to date for period 3, which, as I mentioned before, aligns where I would expect us to be given period 3, be about 25% expended by the end of period 3. We're at 18%, so that is really good. And I did another pie chart there showing visually what the year-to-date expenditures are within the general fund. And then as far as the other funds, we have $977,808 rounded expended year to date. FY21 budget for all other funds is $1,612,679, which includes budget for the debt service fund and the sewer fund. Year to date expended for debt service and sewer is $438,482, with $47,583 encumbered, leaving $1,126,614 rounded in available budget. The debt service is showing as 45% expended as of period 3, and this is within my expectations because most of our bonds that we pay are due in the September-October timeframe for that first payment. The secondary payment will be in the spring, around the March timeframe. So because it's split between spring and fall, I would expect about half of it to have been paid thus far, where we're at 45%, so that's within my expectations. Sewer fund is 24.8% expended, which again is within the parameter of my expectations. Trend is consistent all around and broken out between the funds, you can see there. And then when we take the general fund and look at a department level, which as I explained before is all that we've got going on in here, finance, police, fire, etc. I added a chart that lists out all of those departments, lists the year-to-date expenditures, and a percentage of that expended. Looking at the percentages, they are all within that 25% expended threshold that I would expect. So overall, $2,967,936 is the general fund, $248,259.82 of the sewer fund are all within expectations. County tax is the largest amount in the chart for year-to-date expended, and it's 100% within our budget. County taxes are paid early out in FY21, so that one gets a quick and 100% right there. School is the second largest amount in the chart for year-to-date expended, and it's comprised of the required local share, additional local share debt, and local share adult education that are monthly payments to the school, and that's all based on what was voted on for the budget, all within expectations there. Looking at the percentage used, comparing the year-to-date expended to the budget, all the departments are within the parameter I would expect to see for period 3. At the end of period 3, I would expect approximately 25%, as I've mentioned. And as you can see, all of the departments are within that parameter, except for county tax and abatements. County tax is paid in full early on, so that's 100%. General fund as a whole is 18% expended, which is within expectations. And then the last bit of it was taking that organizational level, looking at the percentage used for FY21, comparing it to percentage used for FY20 as of end of period 3. Looking at that comparison, we are staying diligent in FY21, and that shows at 18% expended versus FY20 this time frame was approximately 32% expended. So given everything going on, I would say we're in good shape. Looking at each of the organization levels within the general fund, FY21 is also showing that lower percentage, in comparison to FY20. For both fiscal years, intergovernmental is 100%, and that's what's comprised of that county tax that's paid early on in the fiscal year. So those are the reports on revenues and expenditures.
Questions of Kayla?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any?
Can we talk to our county people? Maybe we can pay it weekly or quarterly instead of all at one time?
No. I made 4 notes while I was actually listening to you, Kayla. First, I would absolutely, for as long as I have actually worked at Lewiston, I've always wished our counter people in the Treasury office happy tax day, and I completely missed that. So I appreciate you.
That's all right.
It's a big deal because usually long lines, very low sense of humor, and some pretty horrible hours too, because they work overtime only a certain period of time, and it's basically to clear those 2 benchmarks that actually set our cash flow in motion. So it is a big deal, September 15th. The next is the county that Fern mentioned and you mentioned as well, that actually came up in the county presentation. I framed it with the reliance on the TAN funds. They have less reliance on it because they have their 100% of their money early in the year. So it's a target in the back of my mind. I know what their budget figure is. If you have less reliance on it, can I squeeze some more money out of something that you're raising on taxation on that too? The next was, I have very much appreciation for you actually going through the level to be able to put this together. I know it, you know it. At times the financials are, they're not as interesting as a lot of other topics that we may get, but quite frankly, they're why we're here, and very much appreciative in that is turning dollars and cents into something that actually makes sense to be absorbed. I appreciate you doing so.
One other question, just, and maybe it's very explainable, is why would be the big difference in expenses this year versus last year, the 18 versus the 30%? I mean, most of our expenses are pretty cut and dry, aren't they, as far as the bigger ones? I mean, I was just kind of curious. It just seemed like it was a big change from one year to the next, but.
Yeah, I think that most of it is one of the within the general fund, one of the organizational levels was the economic development level. And between last year and this year, we have looked at that level and how that is categorized, so to say. We've moved some things out of what would have lived in general fund economic development, such as grants and all of that, which the grants, you have the revenue side and the expense side, which normally offset each other, but when looking at just the expense side, you don't get to see that offset. And so since last year to this year, we've moved some of that economic development, which is at 117% as last year's percentage, into special revenue fund, which is not in the same fund as the general fund that's presented here. So it's in a different fund this year, which I think is why we're seeing the percentages in a better manner, because we're separating it out between funds a little bit better.
So last year would have showed that we actually were over our percentage in expenditures, and this year is actually better reflects what we really have done.
Yes.
Okay, good. It
Plus
just
we
seemed
have-
like the big number difference, that's all.
We have the spending freeze on as
That's
well.
Yeah.
where I was landing too, is that
Yep.
the unchecked,
Yep.
you may be ahead because you know the money's free in July while you got time to be able to put stuff like the cruiser bids we just talked about tonight. The fact is that expended would have already been done last year. It's a little bit delayed because we're consciously looking at what is going out the door still for cash flow.
So we may see a higher number in the next quarter, instance,
Well, the expenditure freeze is still ongoing until
It is.
further
Yeah, and I think
notice.
last year, we had some pretty large purchases with the Public Works Department, some
Right.
equipment stuff
Some
that
equipment.
we're not having this year too, so.
Yeah, I just see some of the bigger expenditures being the wages and some of the, insurances and county tax. Some of
Yeah,
that stuff not really being able to be changed very much, that's all.
Right.
No, by all means, there may be a little bit, given the time of this, for Kayla to be able to do a cutoff, to be able to do the presentation.
Yeah.
But that's a smaller piece for sure. I would more attribute it to the spending freeze.
It's not that we really have come up with a lot less expenditures, it's just actually the way they're actually categorized in a sense.
Right, it's how they're categorized, and that's why I wanted to speak to that point, because that based on that percentage, when you look at the chart, that kind of stands out to you. But as Diane mentioned, the expenditure freeze, I think that shows our diligence here, and that percentage expended also speaks true to that diligence and for emergency expenditures and such.
Another good thing, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Next item,
We have no appointments. It's councilor communications.
the one that I had was just circling back around, maybe just a question for Randy, do we have an idea yet on the Village Street grinding test that they're going to be looking for this fall?
The first week in October, I believe.
Perfect. Where is it going to be?
I don't know exactly where
Okay,
that's
so
going to be.
Randy's
I thought
gonna
it was
work
going
at
to
it.
be, if it's going to be on the Village Street side or not. I'll find that out. I think isn't that what they said that night on the Village Street side? It's not going to be on 196, but
Right.
And if it doesn't end up being 150 feet as was written in the
it
contract.
is going to be, yeah.
That's going to be it's going to give us a good idea what's going to happen,
Yeah.
that's all.
Right. Cool.
It would be best to happen where it's been a problem, so.
Correct, yeah.
Right. Anybody else, Councilor Communications?
Yes.
Yes, Don.
I hate to be a pain in the neck, but two things that I had to mention and wanted to bring up. One, I'd like, again, to get a sense of the council if we can proceed as a town council or town with economic development to see where solar is going, if anywhere, we've got to do an RFP or something with out there in general to say who can assist us with evaluating. And without the sense of the council, I think we're not doing anything about it. I'd like to pursue that. So if we can, that's what I'd like to do. And if you have any comments about it. The other thing is, I was at home this afternoon about 4:45, and I got a phone call, and I looked at my phone, and it's like, okay, here's another robocall. I almost blanked it out, but I answered it, and it was a constituent who has experienced the perfect storm in the transfer station. And I only mention this because I told him that I understand this issue. I understand the problem. I understand how busy everybody is that works and has 2 family members working in the house. But he went to the transfer station today and had forgotten that he didn't get a permit. He's 2 weeks overdue. As they have been, they turned him away, told him to go to the town office and get a sticker. He went to the town office. I'm listening to his thing, and he came to the town office. I think it was about 4:45, and he said there was a long line.
It's tax day.
Huh?
Tax day.
Yeah.
Anybody paying their taxes before
Yeah.
interest?
Well, anyway, there was a long line, so he stood there for quite some time, but realized he wasn't going to make it by the deadline. So we went back to the transfer station. He had taken a picture of the crowd, went back to the transfer station, and I said, sorry. And so he, at that point, was upset. But what really got him upset was that he anticipated the fact that he was going to have this problem, and he's got a memory like the rest of us. And he had attempted to buy stickers 2 months ago, but we didn't have any. So he offers the idea that he thinks we could do better. And I don't disagree with him. I think that you get in the perfect storm of COVID because we don't have that many people on the desk because of that, and they're all outside. Then we get into the situation at the transfer station because of COVID. And I think, on the other hand, I think there are solutions out there that are possible. I think we can have stickers. I think we could do a number of different ways. But I'm coming to the point where we said we were going to address this issue with the transfer station and all that goes with it after budget season. Well, pretty soon, we're going to be back in budget season again, and we just need to address this matter and get it either in front of us or behind us or something. So on his behalf, I would say that. I actually offered to go pick up his trash and take it for him, but he decided that wasn't necessary. So
On your first point, yes, I agree with potential for a solar RFP. It's why I actually provided you the couple that I was able to do, hoping that we could actually model it after something else, because again, wanting to work against everything else that I know our economic development director is on, and looking for staff assistance associated with that, not knowing who that would fill in that gap. I am very much seeing that everybody's aligning to be able to get in on the available energy credits before they're eaten up, because at that point the intention to be able to get on board is diminished. As for the dump stickers, I agree. One of the things I also expressed, and I know you guys saw it, is I'd advocate that the fact that they should still be available at the solid waste, because in that regard, I know we actually have an expectation of somebody like a Ray, but I don't believe it's a Ray that has to be able to be picking that up periodically to do that. I know it's only a short, and Ray is the PW admin person.
do we have the ability to do credit card only down there?
No.
We do
No.
not. Can we have?
At present, no, but there's potential for something for plans for the future to be able to do there. If it's not fixed now, it's part of what you mentioned for looking at operations moving forward. The second piece to that, for the reason for the delay, we fully intended in that March timeframe when we greenlit a finance committee, it was going to be the first item that actually went before them, is to be able to start breaking some of this stuff down to bring us things. And nobody foresaw the fact that we're now 6 months later into a pandemic situation. We're still under state of emergency associated with that. I'm reluctant to actually roll a new committee out. We want to be able to succeed with all the restrictions and concern for actually having another public meeting space to be able to have that happen. Diane and I talked about that 2 weeks ago, I think maybe now, and the fact is, and I punted it again, we talked about fall. I would hope that by this time that we'd have some, hopeful that, I think I threw November out there last time she and I talked, just for that same reason, is it needs to happen outside of the budget before it's already on us. Everybody agrees with that. It's just anything we were to do here, and Cassie had another topic that she was just bringing to me before the meeting started tonight, it would be reactionary and poor of us to be able to do it with putting something in there, but consciously planning for something in the future. Yes, we need to do better, and I believe that we could. Yes.
So does the town have any future plans for the transfer station? Like, is there anything that we're working towards right now?
We've had a couple of discussions, but nothing that's come of them. Most of them have been tabled. We talked, the discussion that Cassie and I were having before would be paper bag, and that was one option that our public works director had brought before us, but we tabled the item in the grand sum of everything that came out of it last year with the budget was what we adjusted for the fees to make it $25 per pass. Nothing else has been tackled, because anything else, we fix this and you create another problem over here, is the short version.
The other thing we're working on right now is our contract with Casella for the single stream recycling expired at the end of June. So we're currently paying $130 a haul. That's going up to $245. And so we met with them, and we're looking at other options at this point. So the operational part up there is still going to continue to go up. And we got to figure out what we're going to do.
Who was it that was just, somebody was just in the Sun Journal, and the fact that, I forget who it was, but they, I want to say it was maybe Old Orchard or somebody like that, they actually eliminated in the short term any recycling effort because it's cheaper to pay the per ton than it is to actually pay to get the recyclables out of the community.
Brunswick just knocked off all
Brunswick,
glass.
that was it.
All glass. Right.
We've got an avenue for the glass. We talked to Maine Recycling, and we're going to start separating the glass up there, and they're going to take it for free. So we're not going to have to pay for that.
Perfect. So
we're working on that. That's what we're working on right now.
What I would entertain associated with that, Diane, was when that dust settles for some of the fees associated with that, if we have to look at the fees that we're charging for disposal, to adjust the fee schedule midstream, I would be okay with that, because the intention there is to at least cover costs.
Yeah, and I get why you want to sell transfer station stickers up there, but from our point of view and Kayla's point of view and the front office and all the work that goes into issuing a sticker, plus the amount of cash, it is not safe up there to have all of that cash. It is not secure. You're talking a lot of cash up there, and it's not something that most communities do. And all of that is on my shoulders as the treasurer. Whatever happens to that, it's all under my bond. And when you're talking $25 a sticker and you're issuing that many stickers, you're just going to have a long line of people, because it takes probably 3 to 4 minutes to issue a sticker, and then everybody's going to be waiting in line.
So if we can't take credit cards up there,
No.
well, we could, right?
We're not set up to do that.
I
yet.
understand. What would it take to
And
get
you would
set up
have,
for that?
you would have to have some type of a connection in order to do that. So you can't do it down where the booth is, it would have to be somewhere else.
What about check
We
only?
are looking at that, though.
What about check only?
You can do that, check only. But it's still, but
Still a
issuing the
process.
sticker takes a long time.
No, I don't disagree, but the fact is, at least you've got something that's actually not
Yep.
an exposure, that it's there. Then one of the other avenues that I'm living in too is, do we have the ability to be able to do an online purchase of a sticker that could be sent to the individual?
Not without the proof of the registration.
Yeah, the verification there,
Yeah.
I mean, per
Right,
vehicle.
you're
We
right.
need to see that registration to make sure they're still registered here. Or to make sure that their registration hasn't been revoked.
The other point that I think Dawn actually made
Yeah.
that's there is the fact that could we pre-sell?
We started selling the 1st of August.
I know.
And it was on the,
Can we make it the 1st of July?
we can, but they can't get in on that sticker. The sticker expires at the end of August.
You're not technically actually getting in on that sticker, because if you still have the other one on the vehicle, you've got
Yep.
one that's actually
Yeah.
pre-selling.
Yep.
Like prepaid taxes.
Yep.
I know we'll accept the prepaid tax, same thing. If we could at least have the sticker available sooner
Yep.
before it expires,
And-
would alleviate some of that.
Right, and we post it. We have a big poster up there, and they're
No,
telling the people that to
Yep.
get their stickers by, I mean, we've done what we can. And
Right.
yeah, I'll have to see how long it takes to get the stickers in. We've already, so that I don't make 2 purchases in 1 year, to have them
Right,
available
right.
July 1st, we'd have to buy all those stickers in June. Which we don't, which we've already bought our stickers for this fiscal year. you see.
Right.
So that, there might be overlap.
And
I'll find out. but
even
we'll
if
do
even
as
if it's
soon as
something
we
on
can.
that, I would finagle it on the back end. We'd find the funds to be able to get a purchase done early, to be able to not be in the same position. Something that breaks that cycle, because it falls to Ray, and it has for the last 2 years associated with that. I know it's a Band-Aid approach, and anything that actually takes that pressure off would be helpful down the line.
Yes. I'd be curious to see where we do end up with the Holland, because I mean, if that's just basically
know.
stating we're going to be doubling, that's really not the projection that we looked at last time we talked.
No,
We
no.
thought it was going to be a small increase, but maybe not at all. But
Nope.
that'd be
We're
pretty
looking at Eco Maine right now, but they don't have haulers, so we would have to contract with a hauler to haul the material. So we're looking at that. That really looks like a good approach for us. Ray is doing all the work on that, but I'm hoping at the next council meeting, we'll be giving you a presentation, so we'll know where to go.
So the
That's
haulers
fine.
would actually pick up at our location instead of us, because right now we are hauling to a location, right?
Casella is picking it up.
Okay.
So yeah, they do have private trucking companies that do this type of work, and that's what we would have to contract with them ourselves. Eco Maine doesn't have those people on staff to come and pick up your single stream like Casella does.
I know when one of the part of the presentations for Randy for the solid waste is that the tipping fees were not going to be material associated. If that's being reversed and we need to tie it to what we're actually charging for disposal,
Yep.
I would advocate that we see that as well too. So if we have to do something for a half-year adjustment to get
Yep.
us back on case, at least the public knows that would be coming in play in December timeframe.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the scale option, which they had done a lot of research, but we were holding that for the finance committee. But at this point, maybe we should just bring it back to council.
Can we do I hate to volunteer for too many more things, but could we do a council subcommittee that works with certain people, or no?
We can do anything. In fact, it's another ad hoc committee.
I know.
The basis of the LDC and their evolution to here is that there was a need for a specific intended purpose. We have this one already lit. We have 7 volunteers that had expressed interest, and we're still trying to be able to pursue it. So it has validity to be able to be anything.
I'm just saying, whether it happens tomorrow, the next day, or next year, we just need
It is the number one topic that's been identified that actually has a lot of potential to be able to improve.
I mean, if I may, one of the things it all depends who you're looking at, who actually thinks is the highest the biggest problem, whether
Yeah.
it's stickers, the idea of what you're hauling, or how
Yeah.
you're getting in, or what days of operation. So I think,
I heard all that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think at some point in time, we would actually have to just see what the concerns are from the consumer, but also the concerns are from the people that are operational. So,
Yep.
so we could actually mirror the two to see, because there's going to be a lot of concerns, and they're both not the same concerns. But yeah, how do you actually meet in the middle with them, without going to an extreme of just saying just totally do away with it unless people have picked up in front of their house? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different opportunities, but I'd be curious to see where that scale fits in. And I mean, it's just, I know that actually meets the needs of the guessing game up there versus the idea of just looking at a load and trying to make a guess. You mean? Because we're paying by the ton to have it hauled off, so the idea of charging probably the same amount is not unreasonable. It just comes with an upfront cost. So if the finance committee is not going to be happening soon, I would assume that we could, if Don mentions the idea of some type of committee to at least put all the concerns together. I know it's very difficult right now to get that together, but yet I do agree. I mean, I'm a big person that we don't take care of issues during budget season, because that's really not when you should take care of problems. So if we are going to do it, I think we got to be getting onto it pretty soon.
And I think, too, we really ought to look at the pay per bag.
Yep.
As well.
And all the
As
options,
do
yeah.
I.
So what would be the wish of the council on the topic associated with the finance committee? We have a cast of characters already associated with that. Do we believe it's time that we could actually engage a couple of these topics here to have it succeed? The reason it's been shelved is I wasn't convinced with everything.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
another topic, too, that the finance committee can work on as well.
Okay.
Not just that, I want to say it right now, but I can think of one coming down the pipe.
There's a need.
There is a need, yes.
I mean,
I'm not saying it has to be solved right now, but I just think we need to make some
It
progress.
needs its
on it.
attention. That's
Yeah.
why we identified it last year, this time frame, and nothing's changed other than the date on the calendar.
I don't think you can take a little piece of it either. I think you got to look at the whole package.
You do.
Because,
I agree
because
with
it's
that.
not just
The
stickers.
whole thing.
Yeah, you got to look at
I know.
the whole
It's
operation.
not the second vehicle. It's not the.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah,
that
and-
was the number one attended item that we've had. We had 100 and something people in this room. And the fact is, the grand sum from what we got is the fact is you fixed this and you just created 3 other problems. So you need to look at a lot of things to be able to figure out where you want to be at the end of the day.
Yep. Even just the basic idea of, this topic came up last time. Is the transfer station something that people in town actually assume is part of their taxation? Or is it actually something that we generate revenue through to actually make it not profitable but a break even? So, I mean, even that just basic question of where does this fit in as a service of the community, that's a huge question, because, if you going to your point earlier, if we're actually saying it's a service like the fire department or plowing, then the idea if our plow trucks go up that we actually raise the cost of what we plow per street. You know what I mean? It's kind of an odd
Right.
example, but
Right.
yet we have to figure out exactly what level of service we're actually giving to the community, the base level, and what actually we feel that the individuals that use it need to pay over and beyond. And that was a huge
Right.
discussion last time, whether or not at what service level this actually comes in at. You mean if the service level is just picking up trash, or is the service level the idea of getting rid of bulkies and couches and TVs and throwing away your steel and getting rid of your oil? I mean, there's a huge discussion that needs to be put out there, if that makes sense.
I shelved it. I'll take the ownership associated with it. Moving out the finance committee, are we in a position where we feel that we could take action on this at a meeting in October? If the answer is yes, then Diane can bring that to us for appointment if you guys agree.
I would say
What
yes.
action you're talking about, though? I mean,
Getting them at least formed to be able to start looking at.
finance committee?
Yeah.
I think we need to bring them in. I mean, the sooner we bring them in, the better. I mean, I think
Put that on next meeting
will.
agenda if you could. And the fact is, if you could reach out to the 7 people that were there, and I know you had a few others that we were going to try to reach out to. Anybody has anybody that comes to mind? I know we've explored a couple of different names there. Reach out to them, get an application in to Diane, and we'll take action on it for the next meeting.
and I think the reason you shelved it was correct, but I think we
Yeah.
learned now that this isn't
The pause is not working anymore.
Exactly. The hump is not going away, so we just have
Yes.
to learn to adapt to it, right? And make it happen.
Correct.
So,
And I'll work on that RFP thing, so that's, sorry to dominate.
Yeah, by
15,
all
20
means,
minutes.
and the fact that Brett comes to mind again, but is there
I
another
know,
staff?
but he and I can work together, but not on a get-in-his-way basis, I think.
Right. Those are your two. Anybody else, Councilor Communications? Next item, Twyla.
All right, so next item is the audience participation and response for new items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time, although I don't see anyone outside. Those listening from Town Hall Live video streaming are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org. Councilor Ward will review his emails at this time.
I still got nothing, Twyla, so we're moving on.
I wanted to take a moment to just let you know that the town manager and I had suggested that we open the town office October the 24th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for absentee voting only. So it's our intention to be present at the clerk's office and to take maybe new registrations at the same time. Voters would be able to pick up their absentees for their immediate family members if they needed to. They could fill out the applications and run those back and forth that day. And I just wanted to point out that in July, the town of Lisbon installed an official ballot box, drop box, that we purchased from Fort Knox. It's so that residents can put their ballot into that when they want to return them, or they can still mail them or bring them inside. This drop box is located at our side entrance. That's right next to the PD entrance, but it's on the side door, and it has an American flag on it. So it's locked, and we check it periodically during the day, morning and evening. Has a little slot at the top where you can put in your information, your ballot, or we also have been receiving absentee applications in there too. On after 4 p.m., people just drop off their applications. We process those the next day as well.
When did you say that was you're going to be open?
October the 24th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
That's a Saturday by the looks of the
It
calendar.
is a Saturday, so those that are working in the daytime that can't get a chance to get down here will have an opportunity to do that on the weekend.
Now, is that a proposed or is that a definite date?
We definitely like to do it. We just want to let you know that we are going to do that, and we're going to put some advertisements out, but we want to let you know first. If you didn't see any problem with that, we'd be glad to do that.
Do you need a motion or anything from us? Does that help?
No,
It's
we're
just
good.
something you guys will work out to be able to, the nature of everything here. As everybody here knows, the presidentials are always a big deal for Twyla. This one is shaping up to be much more convoluted with the pandemic currently going on. Back to the voters box, when she says they is town clerk only.
Yeah. Yes.
It needs to be a designated box specifically only able to be received for the care of anything associated with the absentee votes.
Right.
That's a key point for Twyla. And 75% or is it 80? I'm trying to remember the reimbursement that the state funding.
80%.
80% of the cost of that was actually refundable through the state.
We've submitted it, so.
Right.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Please.
What other avenues are we trying to advertise the idea the date will be open? I mean, I know our new sign will be up and going by then, but
So far tomorrow, we'll start with the advertisement and get it out on Facebook, on our website. Probably take out a small ad and put it in the newspaper as well, the Sun Journal. Do you have any other ideas? Just let me know, and we'll be sure to. We want to widely advertise it, though.
And lines should operate a lot faster because you're not doing registrations and things.
Yeah, we're still allowing only so many inside. Probably still the line will do the social distancing, so they'll be lined outside and come in one at a time. They'll be using the booth, and if they're voting right there that moment, it shouldn't take too long. But
is there something that we can do on our website that actually, so when they open the page, it will actually be an icon or something specific on our front page that people can actually say whether it's a vote 2020, you mean, that you can click on and get information? Because sometimes it's pretty hard to actually, the information's always on our website, but a lot of times you got to dig down 3 or 4 different levels before you actually get to it.
yeah, you go to departments and then town clerk and elections.
And most people don't get that far, you know what I mean? So
I don't know how you put a little button for voter information on the front page.
I always thought there was something about, there was something we could actually modify on our front page for.
You can do it as alert.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we do that. We were going to do that, but
Okay.
that just sort of disappears off the face or the front of the page as more alerts.
But anybody that signed up for the alerts will get
They
that
should get that.
notification.
But I think on the right-hand side, isn't there some like upcomings or activities that come up
Let me
as?
take a look at that.
Maybe we could actually put it there, just, I don't know, anything to actually, because I know I go look at the website quite a bit, and, even this weekend I was just looking for a fire permit, and I actually, it's the idea of going down tier to tier to tier to tier to try to find something which you would think would be very clicky easy with the new web page that we have.
Cell phone
Even though
apps,
it's not new anymore, but
The cell phone app's even more convoluted because
Yeah.
it's in a narrower space.
Yeah.
I'll look again.
it'd just be nice sometimes if we actually had, if not, maybe even have the web people change something on our website. So if we have something coming up, we could actually have highlighted on a front page. So when you open it up, it's there. Whether it's a
Temporary, even.
Yeah, temporary thing. It could
Maybe
be
move a button and change it
Exactly.
out for a little bit, a couple months.
even if it's for our public hearings or anything, just to highlight what's going on. That's all.
We'll give it a look.
When is the first day for the listening dot that they can pick up absentees?
We expect our absentee ballots to arrive in the building somewhere around the 5th of October. We're planning to mail out our first mailing that week by Friday, as many as we have ready to go. We have envelopes and applications for around 1,200 right now. I expect that will grow to maybe, we're hoping at least 2,000 will want to do mail registrations and alleviate the election day number of voters standing in line. If we could get 1,000 voting in here during the month of October, that would also help.
Are you guys also getting inundated with what I know Lewiston is, with these groups that are actually doing mass mailings for all of this, for signing up, and they're people are getting multiple versions for absentee vote? That's actually just making it even more convoluted to who to send them to.
25 or 30 a day are duplicates.
Yeah.
And that 1,200 doesn't include the duplicates that we've been processing.
It's shaping up to be the social media event of the year, and the fact is everybody that's got a minority interest is trying to motivate you to get on board for the
Yes.
everything from the mail's not going to get here on time to whatever. Everybody's got a motivator to be able to do, unfortunately.
Sure, we're in good hands, right, Twyla?
I think we'll be fine, yes.
Hey, thank you, Twyla.
You're welcome.
Next,
So next is your executive session, Order 2020-170, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 4056A, Personnel Matters.
remind me, were we coming back, Diane?
Yeah, we won't have a vote.
A vote. So,
Just to adjourn is all we're going to do.
all right. Thank you all. We're out.
The motion,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
thank you. 6-0, order passed.
I'm going to pass this around for you to sign. That's that proclamation.
But we still can walk down here and get one.
Sir?
We take a 5 minute recess.
I stand all day at the Perry desk.
By all means. Yep.